West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We begin tonight with James Murray, the director of the Secret Service, who has remained in that position during the Biden administration, even though he was appointed by Donald Trump. The first director of the Secret Service appointed by Donald Trump was actually chosen by John Kelly when Kelly was the Secretary of Homeland Security. The Secret Service is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Homeland Security, and Kelly believed that his friend, a retired Marine Corps General, Randolph Alice, was the kind of outsider that the Secret Service needed to take a fresh look at the management of the Secret Service, which does much more than just protect the president with its $3 billion budget. The Secret Service duties have always included policing counterfeit money, and now include highly sophisticated investigations of financial crimes involving electronic communications, which makes it all the more ironic, to put it mildly, that the Secret Service has lost the most important electronic communications in the history of the Secret Service. It is simply not at all believable, not even slightly believable, that the Secret Service got rid of the most important text messages in their history because no one there knew that those text messages were important. The breaking news of the night is that the Secret Service employees received not one, not two, but 3 separate notifications instructing them to preserve communications before an agency-wide technology replacement program went into effect in the weeks after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. NBC News is reporting, quote, the first email about preserving records came on December 9th, 2020 from the Secret Service's Office of Strategic Planning, and the second was in January 2021 from the agency's Chief Information Officer though a senior Secret Service official source didn't provide an exact date. The senior official said employees received a third email on February 4th, 2021, instructing them to preserve all communications specific to January 6th. The emails, quote, included reminders that federal employees have the responsibility to preserve their records and included instructions on how to do so, the senior Secret Service official said. It was James Murray's responsibility to make sure all Secret Service texts sent and received on January 6th were preserved, and he did not do that. Donald Trump never liked John Kelly's choice for Director of Secret Service, Randolph Alice. Director Alice struggled with something no Secret Service director before him ever faced: how to provide full-time Secret Service protection to a huge high-rise building in Midtown Manhattan where the President of the United States claimed that he still lived, but in fact almost never visited. The Secret Service budget for protecting that building was higher than the cost of protecting any other home of a previous president. And at the same time, the Secret Service budget was skyrocketing to protect Donald Trump on his constant golfing outings locally in Washington and in New Jersey and in Florida. Add to that the 18 members of the Trump family who were given Secret Service protection, and the protective budget of the Secret Service was quickly wiped out. When USA Today ran a story with the headline, "The Secret Service is going broke protecting Trump," Donald Trump blamed the Secret Service director. Donald Trump fired him in April of 2019. In her book about the Secret Service, Zero Fail, The Rise of the Secret Service, The Rise and Fall of the Secret Service, Carol Leonnig tells us that James Murray was not Donald Trump's top choice for his next Secret Service director. Trump wanted to promote Tony Ornato, the leader of his personal security detail, to director of the Secret Service. Quote, Trump wanted to make Ornato director, but Ornato said he had other plans and suggested to the president that he hire his good friend James Murray, a 23-year member of the service. Trump hired Murray after an interview lasting roughly 10 minutes. The president soon after promoted his loyal detail leader Ornato to a political role that was unprecedented for the nonpartisan Secret Service. At the president's urging, Ornato took on the job of presidential political advisor as the deputy chief of staff in the Trump White House. A 10-minute interview for his new Secret Service director. That interview may well have included the questions: who did you vote for president? Who are you going to vote for president? And do I have your complete and total loyalty at all times for anything I might want to do? This was the third year of the Trump presidency. Remember, in the first weeks of his presidency, when Donald Trump brought James Comey into the White House for a one-on-one dinner, Donald Trump was stunningly blatant about loyalty in a discussion with Comey, who he didn't even know and had no reason to trust. Donald Trump made it very clear to James Comey what would be necessary for Comey to continue as FBI director. James Comey tells us that Donald Trump said, "I need loyalty, I expect loyalty." Tony Ornato had no doubt certified James Murray's loyalty to Trump before Trump's 10-minute interview with him. But we know that Donald Trump was not going to give that job to anyone who did not clearly pledge loyalty to Donald Trump. So we know that James Murray is a Trump guy in every sense important to Donald Trump, or Donald Trump would not have promoted him to director of the Secret Service. In April of 2019, all of the Democratic candidates for president had announced their candidacies, and polling showed Donald Trump running far behind Joe Biden, with Joe Biden at 51 and Donald Trump at 42. Donald Trump knew, just like 2016, there was absolutely no way he was going to win more votes than the Democrat. Donald Trump knew he was going to come in second with the voters, and his only hope was the Electoral College. And this time, Donald Trump didn't want to take his chances with the Electoral College. If it came to it, Donald Trump was obviously willing to try to change the outcome of the Electoral College, and that is exactly what he did, and that is what he was still trying to do on January 6th. Cassidy Hutchinson testified that Tony Ornato told her in the White House that Donald Trump tried to go to the Capitol on January 6th to join the attackers of the Capitol. Cassidy Hutchinson testified under oath that Tony Ornato told her that Donald Trump physically struggled with one of the Secret Service agents in the car when he was demanding that the car take him to the Capitol. The Secret Service deleted every text message about that incident in the car and everything else that happened on January 6th, including possible text messages about Vice President Mike Pence. Did Tony Ornato send a text message to Mike Pence's Secret Service agents at the Capitol telling them to take the vice president away from the Capitol? Did James Murray send a text message saying that to the agents at the Capitol to take the vice president away? Were Secret Service agents trying to remove the vice president from the Capitol for his safety, or were they trying to remove the vice president from the Capitol so that the vice president could not certify the Electoral College vote? There could be answers to all of those questions in the text messages deleted by the Secret Service, which could not have happened without James Murray's permission. Donald Trump knew that the Secret Service director that he chose in April of 2019 was going to be the Secret Service director on Election Day and was going to be the Secret Service director in the next Inauguration Day, and that the Secret Service director might be asked to do things that no other Secret Service director in history ever had to do.
Someday, and that day may never come, I'll call upon you to do a service for me.
Whatever the specific words were in Donald Trump's 10-minute interview with James Murray before making him director of the Secret Service, the subtext of it was that line from The Godfather. Someday, and that day may never come, I will call upon you to do a service for me. Did James Murray do a service for Donald Trump by overseeing the deletion of all the Secret Service text messages on January 6th? The January 6th committee can answer all of these questions by issuing a specific personal subpoena to James Murray for his under oath testimony and a separate subpoena to James Murray for all of his Secret Service text messages on January 6th. Today, the Secret Service told the committee that they had found exactly one text that is relevant to the committee's investigation out of the thousands more texts that the Secret Service now says were deleted. Deleting those texts is a violation of law. James Murray knew that when he allowed them to be deleted. The Secret Service is one of the most sophisticated cyber operations in the federal government. The Secret Service specializes in investigating financial cyber crimes. The Secret Service knows what its legal obligations are in keeping electronic records, and the Secret Service violated the law. Attorney General Merrick Garland said today that the Justice Department investigation of the attack on the Capitol and the attempt to overturn the election will not hesitate in bringing criminal charges against anyone who they can prove violated the law. The Attorney General stressed no person is above the law. He didn't say Donald Trump's name, but that's what everyone understood that he meant. And that also means that no Secret Service director is above the law. When James Murray is put under oath by the January 6th committee, or possibly by a federal grand jury, he will be asked a long range of questions about the Secret Service electronic records protocols. He will be asked many questions about what happened to the Secret Service text messages on January 6th, and he should also be asked very direct personal questions. How many text messages did you, James Murray, send and receive on your Secret Service phone on January 6th? Who sent you text messages, and who did you send text messages to on January 6th? What did those text messages say? The Secret Service sent out a directive to everyone in the Secret Service to preserve all relevant text messages on their phones. Did James Murray follow his own directive, or did James Murray personally allow all of the text messages on his Secret Service phone on January 6th to be deleted, or did James Murray do that himself? Did he delete the text messages from his own Secret Service phone? Did the director of the Secret Service personally do that? Is that the service that he did for Donald Trump? James Murray was hoping to slip out of town quietly at the end of the month and start his new career in the high-paid world of corporate security. He is scheduled to begin his new job as the head of security for Snapchat in August. Whoever is handling the preservation of electronic records at Snapchat now is doing a better job of it than James Murray will be able to do. Here's someone who James Murray used to work with.
This is one thing and one thing only. This is an attempt to silence conservatives like you and I from communicating before the 2022 election. That's all this is. And it's a message being sent to anyone who supports Donald Trump either now or in the future that it's open season on you. It's hunting season for your private communications. Don't you dare talk about your intentions or coordinate or do anything to get a Republican elected again, because Liz Cheney will make sure that they subpoena you and make your life really miserable. That's all this was.
That guy was a Secret Service agent. Dan Bongino was a New York City police officer who then joined the Secret Service, where he worked for 11 years, while James Murray and Tony Ornato were also working in the Secret Service. Were they friends with Dan Bongino? Are they friendly with him now? Is Dan Bongino the public voice of what members of the Secret Service like James Murray actually think? There is a very serious problem at the Secret Service now. This is the worst crisis facing the Secret Service since the assassination of President Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963, and the director of the Secret Service has not said one word about it, not one word. There has been much justifiable outrage that the chief of the Uvalde Schools police force went silent after the mass murder at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. This is the same thing. The director of the Secret Service facing the worst suspicions that have ever been focused on the Secret Service in its history, and the director of the Secret Service, James Murray, says absolutely nothing about it. Not one word of explanation, not one word of defense, not one word of a promise to find out what has been happening at the Secret Service. We have never seen a problem like this at the Secret Service. There's a very serious problem at the Secret Service, and James Murray is part of that problem, or James Murray is the problem.
It is Thursday, the 21st of July of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Yeah, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Not too much, just a little bit. Okay, so, got some big problems at the Secret Service. You know, why don't we just call them the SS for short? I keep saying that, okay? It's easier because you are what you are. And they are the SS in all of its deep and nuanced meaning. So maybe it needs to be purged. Maybe it needs to be wrung out. Maybe we need to go on a rat hunt. Because I think you have some structural problems when the people tasked with, protecting, the United States of America as personified and embodied, and the physical manifestation in the presence of the President of the United States and others. We, have that Secret Service tasked to, protect that. And the last guy totally decimated their budget and charged the agency, and essentially the taxpayer, for use of golf carts, the use of the toilet. I mean, it was parsed down to, I don't know, if they smelled a rose, they got charged. You're smelling my rose, otherwise you're stealing my property. And the Secret Service went along with it because I think maybe some guys got some perks. Okay, but there were problems to begin with when Trump took over, because we all know when Obama got elected, they said, let's get drunk, let's beat up some hookers, not pay them. And, what happened? Well, what happened is that those scofflaws got run out of the agency, and I guess that offended people because the black guy, I can't do that. They warned us. If we elect the black guy, that this would happen, and we said, screw you, so we elected him twice. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying, screw you, you Nazis. Oh, I know, we're not supposed to call them Nazis, according to the Nazis here in Southern Oregon, and we'll get to that in just a moment. We, I suppose, should just call them, I don't know, deplorable bigots. That really pisses them off, too. But then you don't have to go through this like lesson about what a Nazi is and what a brown shirt is. And yeah, Antifa took the brown shirt playbook. Really? I think it's the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. Looks to me like they are implicated as being a state militia thuggery group. Yeah. Anyway, I got into a little tete-a-tete here on the town Facebook page here in Rogue River in Southern Oregon, and the reason I did is, the rules are not to bring any politics in and religion, but it always does. Okay, and you can tell who always brings it in. Yeah, the maggots. Well, anyway, my neighbor informed me yesterday that after years of harassment and abuse for being gay, they were fed up. They're listing their place, and they're going to move while their place is listed. They're not going to live there while they're trying to sell their house because it's gotten so bad for them. The last straw was some pretty vile homophobic terrorist, what I call homophobic terrorist threats. Was reported to the cops. The cops came up and said, well, we can't do anything. I mean, there's no prints to lift. Well, how about putting out an alert that you got some Nazi hoods going around trying to intimidate their neighbors to leave? So I thought, well, this kind of property crime just cannot go unaddressed. It's a property crime and a hate crime. And our neighbors need to know this. They need to be on guard for the fact that there's somebody going around etching homophobic threats on people's cars and on their front door. I should also say anti-Semite, even though they're not Jewish. So I call them Nazis. Sounds like Nazis to me. Okay, I'm sorry, deplorable bigots, and that pissed them off even more. So, of course, I am construed as being intimidating and scary, like I might go off and kill people, according to some. After I was actually threatened with bodily harm by some guy in Grants Pass, and hey, come on in town. He says, oh yeah, they're cowards, they're always hiding. I've never hid in my life. Look, I'm right here. Jesus, these people. Now, of course, I have to admit there's a certain level of bravado on my part because I've gotten kind of old now, and I suppose, I have to take into consideration the aches and pains of having to defend myself by some little stupid idiot coming at me. Yeah, I mean, if he sees me, I'm going to have like a bloody stump for an arm because, he packs. Okay, go ahead and pack. Like I've been afraid of that before. Like I've never had that happen to me before. I've never had a gun waved in my face. Give me a break, pal. Jeez. So I guess maybe I should, in retrospect, feel lucky that no one let it go off, or I was lucky in keeping it from going off. Let's just say that I don't want to get into a reflex reaction time contest between a finger and my whole body. It's just I move a little bit slower these days. Or shall we say deliberate. Anyway, I'm not really intimidated by these boasts. I've been around, and I was born here, so you can't say, oh, well, I'm some sort of outsider, and rah, 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 rah. My neighbor had years of this harassment and abuse. When we first moved here, one of the first things we were told is that they were pedophiles. And I go, what? Yeah, they're registered pedophiles. You got to stay away from those people. I'm all, what are you talking about? They said, they're gay. Oh, give me a break. Who told you this? So I went and looked, and they're not. There's nobody registered as a pedophile anywhere near our neighborhood. Okay? I mean, prudent people look at those sorts of things, I suppose, when they're going to buy a place. So that gave me a little idea about the timber of the town. Let alone we had some sort of, I don't know, I still don't know. Was it local guys from the KKK casing us out? Because we got interviewed by some guy with a gun on his hip. Yeah, I invited him into the house. Keep him in close quarters. I got a katana sword. I think I can swing that pretty good in close quarters. Oh, is that a threat? Some people might say it's a promise. Yeah. Hey, come on. Do you think only conservatives watch Clint Eastwood? Give me a break. Or others. Anyway, yeah, that was an interesting incident with the guy that came in to interview us. I could tell something was going on. It was sort of like a welcome wagon without the welcome or the wagon. So, like, okay. All right, I think I know what's going on here. And, you know, he was within eye gouging distance, too. Let's just put it that way. If push comes to shove, one has to be able to, you know, mitigate all possibilities. You know, you got some steps till you get to the eye gouging, but you want to be sure that you're there if you have to. Anyway, the Facebook page post that I posted on the town Facebook page blew up, and the moderator eventually took it down because of how divisive I am by informing my neighbors that there's some terrorists going through here running people off because of their beliefs and lifestyles. And I'm thinking that they're pretty much Nazis and they're becoming emboldened by what's going on in our greater society, and we better take care. And apparently that means I'm scary and intimidating because, yeah, I know, maybe I'm stirring the pot. But after I was threatened by this guy who says he's a conservative and he was born here, and if he sees me in town, I'm going to have a bloody stump of an arm because he packs. You know, said, hey, you know, I've been around, I'm not intimidated by your boss, yada, yada, yada. So on my own personal page, I just decided to put up a little post just because, I like to do that, and they give you graphics to put behind it and stuff. It looks really cool. So I had some prickly pear cactus because it was like a prickly pear cactus type of post, and it said, hey, Rogue River maggot Nazis, or maggot Nazis of Rogue River, don't fuck with me. Yeah, I said the whole word, don't fuck with me. We'll see how Mark likes that. Anyway, it was on my page. I didn't put it on a group page. I didn't put it anywhere else. My page. So if you decided to go and, check out my page, and then they screenshot things and put it on the group page, tagged with me tagged on it. That's how they work, right? And I'm the one that's supposed to be scary and intimidating. Because after I was threatened with actual bodily harm and I said, maggot Nazis, don't fuck with me, apparently that's just too much for the maggot Nazi, because people do not talk back to maggot Nazis, apparently. And Antifa got blamed, of course, you know that. It was Antifa, actually, who came and in some sort of counter-espionage insurgency thing, they went in there so that the right-wing, maggots got blamed, so. And the cities that burned down, and if you don't know that cities burned down, then you're some sort of brainwashed person. I said, please, just prove to me that there were cities that burned down. Show me just one city that burned down, just one, and the appropriations vote to rebuild it. Show me, because there isn't any, because no cities were burned down. There were some dumpster fires, literal ones. There was some Proud Boy, Oath Keeper, Boogaloo types who were working with the cops and got caught eventually burning down an auto parts store that was prominent. And everybody said, oh, I was Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And it turned out to be the guy in an umbrella was working with the cops. The local cops, the local KKK cops. But it doesn't matter. Court cases, actual convictions. All that doesn't matter because that's all liberal brainwashing. And if you believe that, you're a liberal, brainwashed, commie, pedophile, whatever it is. Okay. So I'm scary and intimidating. And I'm telling people, look out, because it looks like the Nazis are emboldened to be, brown shirt shock troop, crystal knocked, Rogue River, and we better take care. And, maybe that's being divisive. Because I'm not a good German. All right? And all these people want to be good Germans. They go, we want to, just because you wear a maggot hat doesn't mean that you believe in everything of it. Well, then take the maggot hat off and stop defending it. My neighbor was run off because they're too scared to live here. And people are defending that? Oh, yeah, well, let him get out of here. Yeah, well, you know what? I'd like to know if any of these convocations that are done by local ministries in this region are vetted before they get in front of a public square and give their convocation before a meeting. What's that about? Normalizes all of it. I'm tired of the normalization of this fascist takeover of the United States of America, and I won't be intimidated by some guy because he says he was a jarhead. I'm a jarhead, and if I ever meet you, you're going to be blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, you know what? I was a supervisor in exploration and production for Gulf Oil for about 10 years, and I'm very adept at telling jarheads what to do. So please don't even start with me, really. God. They can't stand it when you give them the testosterone right back in their face. It's just like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. You're a liberal. You're supposed to be a panty waist. Well, I'm not. But I'm also not going to stoop to the primitive, violent, knee-jerk behavior that these people always stoop to. And because I won't stoop to it, I have to make sure that, you don't have to counterpunch, but you have to defend it. I can take a couple of punches. I could probably take a couple of shots still. I wouldn't want to, but I bet I could. I've taken a few punches. I don't want to. Oh, man. I don't know. It hurts your hands to hit people. Don't do it. So I try to avoid it at all costs. But I'm not going to walk away, and I'm not going to sell the house because I fear that they're going to come and get me. Well, you know what? I don't want to be an example either. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But it's not for me to tell my neighbor how they're supposed to respond to terrorism. Whew. Okay, I had to go off. I had to have Lawrence up there for the full, it was about 15 minutes. I apologize. But, since David took off or had to take off today, I thought it was, why don't we do this? And that was an important story to be told. And we have some other curated stories that really should be told as well. So why don't we get off of my, neighborhood rant here in Mayberry. Jeez. Wow. Got some Burgermeisters out here in Mayberry, and they're all goose-stepping. Anyway, on the rest of the menu as we begin here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, 157 House Republicans voted against protecting same-sex and interracial marriages. And that's the kind of people that are defending, I live among them. They're defending this. House Dems moved to protect contraception from the Supreme Court because they're in private Bible studies being told what to do. And It only took 246 years for the Marines to elevate their first black 4-star general. Now they got a black guy telling some jarheads what to do. I don't know what they're going to do. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Italy's political turmoil is turning into a headache for Europe's central bank. And the European Union moved closer to imposing more sanctions on Russia, because Russia deserves it. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Get right into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. And this first offering is out of the American Independent by Josh Israel. The House of Representatives overcame the opposition of 157 Republicans and passed a bill that would codify federal protections for same-sex and interracial marriages. The vote was 267 to 157 on passage of the Respect for Marriage Act, a bill designed to prevent the U.S. Supreme Court from rolling back more existing constitutional rights. All 220 Democratic representatives and 47 Republicans voted in favor, but the Defense of Marriage Act, signed into law by former President Bill Clinton, both blocked any federal recognition of same-sex marriage from any state and said no state need recognize a same-sex union from another state as valid. While the provisions of DOMA were declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in its decisions in United States v. Windsor in 2013 and Obergefell v. Hodges in 2015, Section 7 of Title I of the U.S. Code still reads, "In determining the meaning of any act of Congress or of any ruling, regulation, or interpretation of the various administrative bureaus and agencies of the United States, the word marriage means only a legal union between one man and one woman as husband and wife, and the word spouse refers only to a person of the opposite sex who is a husband or a wife." Representative David Cicilline said the Respect for Marriage Act will protect same-sex and interracial marriages from any radical or bigoted decision that may come from the current extreme Supreme Court majority. Of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The right to use contraceptives would be inscribed into law under a measure Democrats are pushing through the House, their latest campaign season response to worries that a conservative Supreme Court that's erased federal abortion rights could go further. The House plans to vote today on the legislation and send it to the Senate, where its fate seemed uncertain. Well, that's one way of putting it. The push underscored that Democrats are latching on to their own version of culture war battles to appeal to female, progressive, and minority voters by casting the court and Republicans as extremists intent on obliterating rights taken for granted for years. Well, it's hard not to feel that way since that's exactly what they are doing. Rachel Chasen and Dan Lamothe of the Washington Post brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. In the late 1980s, Major Ronald Bailey met a young Marine he knew had promise. Michael E. Langley was a powerlifter who dominated flag football games, an intellectual who set records for how many training courses he wrote, and a problem solver whose bosses frequently tapped him to mediate workplace disputes. Langley, then a first lieutenant, was also one of the few young black Marines based in the prestigious downtown D.C. barracks. Bailey, who went on to become a 3-star general, took note. He said he offered Langley advice based on his own experience and that of the black Marines who had mentored him. "You will live under a microscope," Bailey recalls telling Langley. "You must always set the standard." In other words, you got to be Superman. More than 3 decades later, Langley will be under the microscope yet again after being nominated to lead all U.S. military forces in Africa as chief of the U.S. Africa Command. His Senate confirmation hearing is today, and if confirmed, Langley would become the first black person to receive 4 stars since the founding of the U.S. Marine Corps 246 years ago. Over that time, more than 70 white men have risen to the Marines' highest ranks. Indeed. Well, congratulations, and let's hope that he gets confirmed. And that, brings us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Come to the forest. It's a place not so far away. A place where you don't have to mow the lawn or babysit. A place where you don't have to make time for free time. Where you can cool down in one of nature's swimming pools. Come meet bugs and birds. You may even meet the mysterious creature known as the other you. The silly you. The adventurous you. The curious you. Ask your parents to take you to this not-so-far-away place. Come to the forest, where the other you lives. But first, stop by discovertheforest.org, a public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
Although we haven't even gotten through this year's midterm congressional elections, it's still not too early to start examining some of the characters who hope you will make them president in 2024. I know you don't want to, but we must. That's because corporate elites have already chosen their favorites, and they intend to use massive sums of money, lies, more money, PR slickum, and even more money to slide their toady into the Oval Office, hoping you don't discover until it's too late that their chosen one really is a toad. Take Ron DeSantis. The GOP's far-right, power-hungry, narcissistic Florida governor promises to be the next Donald Trump, only more effective and not as nice. For example, his favorite gubernatorial hobby is the Orwellian practice of monitoring and censoring people's speech and thoughts, culling out ideas he deems objectionable. Don't say gay is his most infamous dictate to the state's teachers, but he has also outlawed any teachings that might, quote, denigrate the Founding Fathers. Nor will he tolerate the study of institutional racism in America. Indeed, he has even mandated that social studies textbooks, get this, must not include concepts of social justice. Ron adamantly opposes what right-wingers call a woke society. He wants one that's asleep, sound asleep. He recently rallied his right-wing cadre to ban some math textbooks. Yes, math. They screeched that some real-life topics like wage disparities are being used to make math problems relevant to today's students. So it was Fahrenheit 451 for those books. Thus far, DeSantis' censorship binge has nixed 42 math books for, quote, incorporating prohibited topics. This is Jim Hightower saying, did I mention that DeSantis is also forming his own gubernatorial military force? A state army he can deploy in emergencies. What's an emergency? He says he'll decide.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics from the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. The framers of the Constitution were concerned about two things. First, the emergence of a tyrannical executive in the presidency, and second, a tyranny of a majority in Congress. So they designed a unique and complicated system intended to prevent either forms of tyranny from emerging while still carrying out the responsibilities of a Republican government. To accomplish this goal, the framers created in the Constitution three separate governmental institutions at the national level. They gave each a primary responsibility and the authority and powers necessary to carry it out. They gave Congress the primary responsibility and power to make laws. They gave the presidency the primary responsibility and power to implement and enforce the laws made by Congress. Finally, they gave the federal court system, led by the Supreme Court, the primary responsibility and power to manage disputes over the meaning, implementation, and enforcement of the laws and the interpretation of the meaning of the Constitution. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
The story of the 10-year-old rape victim in Ohio, sadly, is not all that rare. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. Indeed, in Ohio itself, in 2020, according to that state's Department of Public Health, 52 girls under the age of 15, an average of one per week, received an abortion. Across the country, in 2017, the last year for which data is available, there were almost 4,500 pregnancies among girls under the age of 15, with 44% ending in abortion. The data does not make clear the numbers that resulted from rape or incest. What is clear is that many states now or soon will prohibit all abortions. And in some states that theoretically would permit abortions in cases of rape or incest, the barriers to accessing care, especially for young people, barriers such as the requirement of police reports, no available providers, lack of transportation, no legal support. Those barriers will, as a practical matter, make this medical care unavailable. As Dr. Caitlin Bernard, the Indianapolis OB/GYN who performed the abortion for the 10-year-old who had to leave her home state, said, quote, "My heart breaks for all survivors of sexual assault and abuse. I am so sad that our country is failing them when they need us most." The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1931, and Chicago public school teachers went home without a paycheck. The school system was broke. Property owners out of work due to the Great Depression could not pay their property taxes, which were used to fund the public schools. Schools in inner cities lacked libraries, playgrounds, and often even adequate toilet facilities. Classrooms were overcrowded. Black teachers faced racial discrimination. School administrators piled on more clerical work onto teachers' already busy workloads. They introduced a blizzard of standardized tests. Still, according to an article published in 1927 in the American Teacher magazine, teachers were supposed to believe that teaching was a noble profession, free and immune from the cares of the more sordid world. The same article went on to say that many teachers, quote, believed their personal dignity and self-respect required that they keep aloof from any organization affiliated with labor. The Great Depression made teachers more militant. However, Chicago teachers stayed on the job despite the payless paydays. One Chicago teacher explained that they were determined not to desert the Chicago schools. It was not easy organizing Chicago's teachers. Only 10% of the teachers belonged to the 4 competing teachers' unions. But not getting paid helped arouse them. And 2 years later, 5,000 teachers converged on Chicago's largest banks in protest. They broke windows and overturned desks. Chicago's mayor, Ed Kelly, agreed to pay 4 of the 9 months back pay owed to them. Finally, in 1934, thanks to federal assistance, the Chicago teachers received all of their back pay. You only need read about the current Chicago teachers' struggle to see that the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Don't worry, just a little. We always begin weather from around the world. Along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 60 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high in the mid to upper 90s. It could be a tad warmer than that, but hopefully a bit cooler than it's been. Abundant sunshine throughout the day. Winds will be increasing out of the west-northwest to 10 to 15 miles per hour, and then a few passing clouds tonight with lows in the mid-50s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow with highs in the mid to upper 90s. Oh my. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have been updated. Our confirmed cases have increased. We now stand at 481,020 confirmed cases. And our deceased have also increased by 3, and we stand at 559 confirmed deceased. It's not over. Wear your masks. We are in an advisory right now in Oregon. Our hospitals are being overwhelmed once again. But we have grass pollen, which is rated high to look forward to today. But the air quality index is holding steady in the good range at 35 parts per million. And that daytime UV index, though very high, has come down, and it stands at 8, but it had been at 9 for months. So now it's at level 8. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.04 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is only at 58%. So it's going to get dry. Well, weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 74 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 80 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 94 and fair, and they continue with a heat advisory that could impact critical infrastructure. Kyiv is 78 and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 74 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 85 and fair. Tokyo is 82 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 55 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 51 degrees and cloudy, and New York is 90 degrees Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, with a heat advisory. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. David McHugh of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi's offer to resign has sent unsettling ripples through financial markets, bringing back bad memories of Europe's debt crisis a decade ago and complicating the European Central Bank's job as it raises interest rates for the first time in 11 years to combat record inflation. Draghi, a former ECB president, has pushed policies meant to keep Italy's high levels of debt manageable and boost growth in Europe's third largest economy. He suggested that he was open to staying in power, but the threat of political changes as borrowing costs increased have raised concerns that the 19-country Eurozone could head into another crisis. Is a headache for the ECB as it seeks to return interest rates from sub-zero to more normal levels starting today without setting off bond market chaos in a country with debt at 150% of economic output. The ECB has said it will raise rates a 0.25 percentage point, though some analysts are not ruling out a 0.5 point increase.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Associated Press staff bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The European Union moved closer to imposing more sanctions on Russia after its 27 ambassadors backed a series of measures to ban gold imports and tighten export controls on some high-technology goods. The Czech Republic, which holds the EU presidency, said the new measures will align the EU with G7 partners, reinforce implementation, and close loopholes where necessary. If no objections are raised by national capitals by early today, it will be published in the official journal, after which details of the limited package will become available. EU officials have been seeking all week to tighten the extensive package of sanctions on Russia and looking at ways to add a ban on gold exports in hopes that the measures might finally start to have a decisive impact on the war in Ukraine. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.